Hey everyone, I'm back today with an episode on useful tools that can help you develop a long-term content strategy. So as you may know, I'm running a live workshop series this summer in June and July on the subject, and this episode is kind of a way to give you an overview of what we're going to be looking at, and I'm also going to be sharing 4 very useful practical tools that you can implement right away. But if you like, you can also join the more comprehensive workshop series where you get to ask questions, meet like-minded people. I'll share my screen, so in addition to listening, you can also see what I'm doing, and I'm going to really take you behind the scenes and show you how I set the different systems around media and content in my business app. And I'll also share the spreadsheets that I'm using that I'm mentioning on the podcast today. So the workshops used to be free, but I'm asking for a small pledge on my Patreon now so that I can pour more love and energy into them. So you can pledge $30 or more, you get access to all the workshops I'm running, and you can cancel anytime. So those are 4 coming up in June and July. If you're listening to this podcast episode later in time, check that link out anyway, because I'm always hosting workshops that go deeper into the materials that I'm teaching. But now for today, so 4 useful tools that can help you develop a long-term content strategy. First, I want to acknowledge why I think it is really important that we look at these tools and see what we can utilize for ourselves. So I think, you will feel this probably if you're listening to this, and you've heard other people talk about it too. Social media keeps changing all the time, and that makes sense. That's normal, I guess, for what it is. But it can also be really stressful for business owners because there's a lot of pressure to consistently show up, to gain attention and momentum, and to be seen and to be louder than everyone else. And it can be a super fun and beautiful way to get to know other people, like-minded folks, to tell your story and connect with people. But it can also be really stressful and feel competitive at times. So I'm really excited about creating nurturing spaces of collaboration and creativity. So I'm always kind of thinking about ways in which we can do things differently. And I think these tools really create more space for us to be able to feel at ease and to go a little bit slower with these things and still grow our businesses and feel stable and secure. So I think the first step before I share any tools is probably also to think about what you actually want to achieve with your content strategy. So here are a couple of examples. You might want to kind of really position yourself as someone who's known for something specific. I'm explicitly not using the word expert here because I think it can have some weird connotations as well. I actually really like the idea of peer-to-peer services or products, and the idea of kind of being in it together without necessarily having a hierarchy. But what you probably want by developing your content strategy is to be remembered for what you're offering. So I, for example, would like to be remembered as a person who gives support to people who run small businesses, and as a web designer, and then I also have my other business, Daydream roles. So I want to be remembered for these things. And then another goal I have with my content strategy is to share as many resources and ideas and tools that I'm excited about as possible. So I feel super lucky that I get to do all these courses. I get to spend time reading books and playing with things, and I was lucky to be able to go to university for an MA in creative media. So I just really want to share that because I think it can make a huge difference for us. Other goals that you might identify is, of course, to grow your audience, to have more exposure for what you're offering, to grow your business. It can maybe also be connected to PR. Maybe you want to earn some media rather than just kind of creating your own, which is super beautiful. Maybe you also want to get noticed by some other platforms or podcasts that you want to connect with. So have a think about that, and then before you go into utilizing the tools I'm about to share, really identify what your intention with your content strategy is. Another good one, I think, is just to create more time and space for yourself. So I think with these tools I'm sharing, I'm really hoping that you will walk away feeling like you need to spend less time on your phone, hustling and comparing yourself to other people. So that's probably a really good one as well. Okay, so now tool number 1 is journaling about your audience. Sounds really simple, but it's actually really powerful because so many people don't actually really know what they have to say and who they're talking to. So I'm going to share a couple of journaling prompts with you, and I would highly recommend that you give it at least 20 minutes to sit down with these. And obviously you can make up more. Maybe you want to spend more time, but I think that's a really good starting point that will make it a lot clearer for you, where your content is going to go long term. So those questions could be: who are you talking to? What are they struggling with? What is their life like, and what are they excited about? And then kind of more related to you and what you're offering, what do you want to share with these people? And how you approach this, remember you can always pause the podcast and write a bit, or you can do this another time. But think about what kind of documentation would be most useful for you as the learner that you are. So maybe you're very visual, in which case maybe make a mind map of characteristics. Or maybe you love Excel sheets and you just want to have everything in one place. Then maybe make a list in your Excel sheet. But really think about who you're talking to, bearing in mind that you might identify a very specific demographic or even imagine a specific kind of person that you're talking to. But there can still be variation. That doesn't mean that other people can't hear you or that you can only ever write anything for that particular person. But really, what I've seen time and time again is that if people get clear on who their content is for and what the themes are around which they want to share, everything else becomes so much easier. So to give you an example, maybe you are a herbalist, maybe you develop products, but you're also seeing clients, and maybe you're specializing in burnout and stress. So you can think about, what age range are the people that you're talking to? Why are they stressed? What is their experience? With herbs, are they already working with supplements, or are they interested in making teas, maybe growing their own? Where do they live? What kind of income do they have? What are they challenged by? And it goes on. So you can kind of develop a pretty detailed picture of who you're talking to. And at the same time, you can also talk to someone completely else who is also stressed out. But just having that starting point might be really, really useful for you. And the next tool I want to share is creating a sheet for themes across different channels. So let me clarify what I mean by that. You probably know on which channels your business is currently present. So maybe you're on Facebook or Instagram, and then maybe you have a blog, or maybe you have a podcast, or maybe you're actually just really focusing your energy on Pinterest. But open a spreadsheet, and then at the top, I would have a list of the different channels or places that you're present in mapped out. So for me, for example, I have my podcast, then I'm on Instagram, of course posting to Facebook, I'm sometimes giving interviews, and I'm on Pinterest as well, though I don't spend as much time there. And I have a newsletter, of course. So those are kind of the areas of content in my business right now that I am mapping out. And then that is the top. And then on the left side, I will have a line or two for each of the months that are coming up in the next year. So for example, if you've chosen Instagram and Facebook as your spaces, and I would really invite you to choose them wisely and to think about, what spaces and what ways of engaging with people do you actually enjoy, and where do you want to put your energy. And then you can identify what themes you want to create content around each month. And maybe you want to keep that really open, or maybe you want to be really specific. And I think that really depends on how you're feeling about content creation at the moment. So some people feel pretty anxious about this. They kind of get stuck. They're like, they just have this feeling of, I wish I had more to say, or I wish I was posting on Instagram more consistently, and it's kind of hard for them to integrate that into their everyday life. I think in those cases, it's good to get really clear and say, so in May, I'm going to be talking about body love or self-love or ritual. In June, I'm going to be talking about travel and getting ready for summer and taking time off. And then maybe in the colder season, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere in October, you'll be talking about letting go or grief. So you're kind of mapping out the themes for the year. These are really just examples. And then you're committing to different categories within which you're going to create content or post on the different channels. So for example, say you're saying in October, I'm going to talk about grief and letting go on Instagram. And then you can identify different categories or kind of forms of posts that you want to create. So for example, you can share personal stories, you can share quotes that inspire you, you can highlight your offerings, you can create collaborations with other people, you can share recipes, tools or tricks, or you can host giveaways. Those are just some categories of different posts on Instagram. So then at the beginning of October, you'll come back to your sheet and you'll be like, okay, I've committed to this theme. This is what I'm going to write about. These are my platforms and channels that I want to focus on. And then again, it really depends who you are and what feels useful for you in terms of structure and commitment, but maybe you want to commit to 2 newsletters each month, and then at the beginning of October you'll write both of them. Maybe you're also going to write a blog post, and then you're going to schedule maybe 10 Instagram posts around the subjects into your later.com account. Later.com, the free version, is what I use sometimes to write out longer Instagram posts that I want to share that are just too fiddly to write out on my phone. So I'd say at the moment about half my Instagram content is written out on my computer in that way, and the rest is just smaller, spontaneous posts that kind of come up in everyday life. And that feels like a balance that's good for me. So there's always a theme. I'm clear on what I'm currently promoting and talking about. I'm trying to mix things up and really also create value and share tools and things that work for me. And also I'm trying to collaborate with other people as much as possible. So this sheet obviously can look so many different ways, but I'm really inviting you to think about what kind of structure feels good for you. Like how long into the future do you want to plan? How many platforms can you actually commit to? And how can you batch the content creation for these different areas as well? Because feeling like you have to come up with something very small, smart and insightful and exciting every day on Instagram can just really mess with your head. So I think as small business owners, we often forget that we're wearing so many different hats. We're bookkeepers, we are PR people, we often do customer care, we are doing creative direction and product management, all these different kind of roles that we have. And so I think it can be very stressful and also not very productive to kind of go in and out of these different tasks every single day. It's just going to drain the shit out of your energy. So I am really kind of a proponent of, I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm really liking the idea of batching, and I'm going to have a whole other episode just on the idea of batching, which very much applies to content as well. And then the third tool I want to share is mapping your user experience or customer journey. So again, what that looks like might be different. Maybe you want to create this in canva.com, which is a free browser-based design tool. Maybe you want to do it in your journal. Maybe you want to have an Excel sheet. But the idea with mapping your user experience or customer journey is that you're thinking about the ways in which people get to know your work and explore what you have to offer. So in my case, for example, many people first meet me on Instagram either because friends are following me or sharing something, maybe through the discovery, or maybe they are searching for a keyword that I'm using. So they're coming across my work, they maybe decide to follow me, and then after seeing me post a couple of times, they're like, oh, this person also has a podcast. Then maybe they start listening as you are now. And then maybe eventually they're interested in coming to live workshops, to one of my live workshops. I've run more than 25 free ones last year. So I've really grown my audience and my connection with people, which was really beautiful in this way. And then some of these people kind of feel like that's enough, that's all they need. They're not ready to spend any money, which is also totally fine, because one of the things that I really love about this way of running an online business is that I can serve with abundance a large number of people that are not actually needing to buy anything from me. People who listen to podcasts or read my Instagram posts or come to my free workshops. That's totally cool. I love doing this work. And then some people will commit to work with me in some way, either hiring me as a web designer, maybe they become a patron to support the show, maybe they come and sign up for the DIY Small Business School, and so forth. But you want to map out how people first get to know you and what the next steps are. So maybe ask a friend who hasn't been so involved in your business yet to just kind of go and check out your Pinterest account and then go to your website and really see if it's intuitive for them, what you're offering, and if they immediately understand how they can work with you. And also if how you're sharing content makes sense to them, and if it feels to them like you're very passionate about your subject, and you have consistency in what you're sharing and how you're showing up. If you don't want to ask your friend, maybe just ask someone on the internet. There's so many other small business owners, even if you don't know them yet, that you can maybe Skillshare with, and you can kind of coach each other through the experience of mapping out that user experience. And with that, I also would recommend that you look in detail into how your content is being utilized. For example, maybe you want to have your featured most popular blog posts on your homepage. Maybe you need to make sure that you're linking to your offerings from all your different social media channels. That's something that I often see people not doing, is that they maybe haven't linked to their business website on their Facebook account, or maybe they just have one link in their Instagram profile. I use the free version of Linktree for that, to have several links at once in my account, which really, really helps to talk about different things at the same time. So yeah, those are good steps that you can take to map out your customer journey and see how that relates to the content that you're producing. And the fourth tool is batching and scheduling. So again, this will be super unique, and you get to really think about what's feeling comfortable for you. But maybe your way of batching, for example, is to block one day at the end of each month to create content for the next month, and to use that full day to create 2 newsletters, 1 blog post, and 10 Instagram posts. And then you're going into the month knowing that at least your basics are really covered. And obviously you don't have to email or blog that often if that's not where you're at right now. These are just example numbers. But in my experience, it can feel so liberating to get that done in one day, to be spending that one day in this creative writing headspace, and then to move on to the next task. And then of course you can schedule your newsletters if you like. You can use later.com or another social media scheduler. And you can also, if you have a WordPress site, upload your new blog post and just schedule that to come out at a specific time in the future if you like. And I think for most of us, it's still really beautiful and useful to have a sense of spontaneity. So don't feel like you have to schedule everything out and batch everything. You still want to share spontaneous, fun stories that come up for you, and just see what happens with that. I think that's really important as well. Cool, so I'm going to recap the 4 tools. The first one is journaling about your audience, really getting clear on who you're talking to and what this person's life is like and what they want to hear. The second tool is creating a sheet for themes across different channels to really map out your content for the future as far ahead as you're comfortable with. The third tool is mapping your user experience and really thinking about how that relates to your content and how you're sharing. And the fourth tool is batching and scheduling in a way that feels good to you. So again, you're invited to come for the live workshop if you feel overwhelmed with this, if you have questions, or you want to see me share my screen. That would be super helpful. I'll link to that into the show note. And also a reminder that I'm offering a new 3-month business program that is really a deep dive into one-on-one mentoring with me. So it concludes 9 sessions with me. You'll get access to DIY Small Business School. You get 5 hours of design and tech support, as well as 10% off my web design packages. And I'll link to that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.